Fed rate trajectory will likely continue. Third, the US dollar itself, and that is linked to the US rate. The US dollar has spiked. The DXY is again back up to 101 or a little more. And that is, that has clearly driven flows even further away from the emerging markets, including Asia. So all these things, sort of came together over the last 2 or 3 weeks. And, this is something we have to very keenly watch out for.
But this point about waxing and waning of the interest in tech stocks and in terms of flows is well made, because last week, according to data from Bank of America and EPFR Global, the technology sector funds in the US saw outflows of $9.3 billion, which follows the prior week where there were inflows of more than $19 billion. So that in and out has been taking place. Manishi, in the emerging market basket now, in the stack, where does India feature right now? Are we slowly creeping up? Because as you said, at some point you are going to say that how much can we invest in these individual stocks, right? There is a limit. You have to diversify outside, and that's taking place even when you look at the NASDAQ versus the S&P 500 performance year to date in the US markets. People are looking outside of the tech stocks. So in that sense, is India slowly creeping back up on the league table?
I think in a way it is, particularly over the last 1 month. Foreign investors are still very much underweight India. And, to get them back into India in a big way, there has to be a significant earnings revival, which in turn can address the valuation premium question. Now, fortunately, I see that over the last 1 month, India's consensus EPS estimates have risen. And it's just about 3 markets in Asia that have had that good fortune. They're again Korea and Taiwan. And now India has joined that club. It's just 1 month's data. But if it sustains, then that would possibly be a bigger kicker to the Indian market fortunes than anything else. And the best part is that this earnings estimate increase is not just across a couple of sectors. We are seeing that in basic materials. We are seeing that in consumer discretionary. We are seeing that in various consumer services and also in financials, which is the biggest sector in India. And just to put that together with the currency, which has stabilized and hopefully stays that way over the foreseeable time horizon. If these 2 things sustain, earnings recovery and currency stabilization, then India might again come back into focus.
Right. But, until that happens, what is it that India has to do to get the attention? I mean, in the sense that, on the one hand, you obviously say that India is not getting the attention because the attention is going somewhere else. But it's not that a lot of things are going right here as well, right? What is our best course of action from here on to get investor interest? And what sectors?
Well, that's a tough question, Mangalam. Because as you rightly point out, that there are quite a few things which are not going right as well. And if I were to lay my finger on the top of that list, what's not going right? It's basically job creation, which in turn drives consumer sentiment. And that is certainly not going right for India right now. We have to also acknowledge that AI is here to stay. And therefore, one of the biggest job creators in India, the tech services industry, is likely to shed many more workers than they have already. And that is a big concern as far as the broader consumption environment of India is concerned. So this is something that the policymakers would have to focus on. There's actually no alternative. The alternative investment routes, into the manufacturing sector and drawing investments, both global and local investments into those sectors, is the absolute imperative of the hour. India is fortunately going into, trade agreements, both with Europe and the United States. We are yet to see what's the efficacy of those agreements in bringing more investments into India. And I think even in some of the other sectors where let's say China has the majority of the intellectual property, those are, the areas where India would have to focus on, and maybe even, kind of recreating the new alliances. Not just with the Western Hemisphere, but even elsewhere, would be the need of the hour.
Okay. We leave the conversation here. Thank you very much.